and a world without war. Europe says almost nothing. America says nothing. And Putin makes missiles.
You're gambling with World War III.
Territory remains the real sticking point.
Donbass includes the two provinces of Donetsk and
An
Luhansk.
industrial area in the east of the country. The conflict has dominated European politics.
UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air.
If there is one person in the world who can do it and who has the leverage on both sides to do it, it is Trump.
President Trump, what's your message to Vladimir Putin, sir?
We're marking the 4th anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But the conflict really began back in March 2014, when the Kremlin seized Crimea and then fomented a rebellion by separatists in the Donbass in the east.
And international law must be upheld. And so Russia's decision to send troops into Crimea has rightly drawn global condemnation.
On 24th of February 2022, Russia mounted its full-scale invasion.
As I woke up from the explosion, I've never ran so much quicker to my bathroom ever, trying to hide.
Which meant the beginning of the largest and deadliest war in Europe since the Second World War.
Dreaming of the 2-ton giant and city smashers to come and hit them.
The sheer scale of human loss on both sides has been horrific. Zelensky claimed that 55,000 Ukrainian soldiers had been killed and what he called a large number were missing. Western estimates put the number of deaths on the Ukrainian side at much higher. One study done in Washington puts it at about 100 to 140,000 who've been killed. Russian casualties appear to have been much higher still. One study, which is actually based on identifying the names of those who've died, has found 173,477. And then there are civilians who have died. Probably about 15,000 Ukrainians, plus another 40,000 injured. So the economic toll has also been enormous. The joint assessment by the World Bank and various other international institutions last year estimated that Ukraine would need about $524 billion over the next decade to recover.
Just to be clear, that's 3 times the GDP of Ukraine.
We've now sort of settled down into a kind of a situation where the Russians control about 20% of territory in the east and southeast of the country. Zelensky does not want to give Russia more than it's got already. And until that problem is solved, we're never going to get peace.
I will prevent, and very easily, World War III, very easily.
So President Zelensky has said that he thinks a peace deal will need to be concluded by June, and he thinks the pressure is coming from the US to set this deadline. Trump initially said when he was elected president he would resolve the conflict in 1 day.
I will get it solved in rapid order, and it will take me no longer than 1 day.
Now we're more than a year on from that, and yet we haven't seen much progress despite plenty of talks and that Alaska summit with Putin.
A peace agreement at the end of all of this is something that's very attainable.
The June deadline is really US imposed. The major sticking point remains territory, and specifically the Donbass, which is part of eastern Ukraine that includes the two provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. And Ukraine still controls about 30% of Donetsk, which is one of those two territories, and they're loath to give that up because these include some of their most hardened defenses. If they were to cede this territory, if they were to surrender it to the Russians, then they basically think they would leave themselves exposed to further attacks. So that's why they're so determined not to give it up in any negotiations. Whereas the Russians and President Putin has said all along that Donbass is the key, that they want the whole thing.
В каких-то окончательных вариантах но поскольку их и нет, некоторые вещи, они носят принципиальный характер.
They have already passed laws a while ago kind of recognizing it as Russian territory, even though they don't control all of it. So it's very important for them. And this goes back not just since the beginning of the full-scale invasion that was 4 years ago. This goes back 12 years because it was in 2014 that Russia originally invaded Ukraine. So this has been a Putin obsession for over a decade. And he has basically failed on the battlefield to take this territory. So he wants to secure it in negotiations. The Coalition of the Willing is basically the brainchild of Britain and France, but will also draw in a lot of other European countries, perhaps Canada. At the moment, the negotiations are about these boots on the ground that Britain and France and other countries are proposing.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air.
But to be quite frank, their militaries are not strong enough to do that operation on their own. They would like the US to also offer security guarantees. Ukraine was provided security guarantees under previous peace negotiations after 2014. And Russia tore all those up and invaded again. So even if the two sides do agree to stop fighting, how does Ukraine know that Putin doesn't come back to take another slice? The sacrifice over this territory has been huge, and Zelensky may well be politically punished.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
I wouldn't write him off.
Я, Володимир Зеленський, волею народу обраний президентом України, зобов'язуюсь усіма своїми справами боронити суверенітет і незалежність України, обстоювати права і свободи громадян, додержуватися Конституції і законів України, виконувати свої обов'язки в інтересах усіх співвітчизників, підносити авторитет України в світі.